Hi, I am Danny Young, and I am down in the drumshin here with TreeHouse Drums and the creator and owner, Derek Sharp. How are you, Derek?
Hi, I'm fine, thanks. Thanks a lot for coming, taking time out of your busy schedule.
Yeah, I'm currently actually touring on the road, but I have been using TreeHouse drum sets now for almost 3 years. Long story short, I actually met these guys while I was touring on Young Frankenstein, the musical, and when I was asked to do The Nutty Professor, which is the Jerry Lewis Marvin Hamlish show, I thought, you know what? I met these guys, they make incredible drums, I want something custom. So I ended up giving you guys a call, and you built me a completely custom drum set, amazing drum set for that show. So that was sort of our intro. I guess I never heard the story, though, of how TreeHouse got started, so I thought that would be sort of an interesting place for us to start.
Well, the drum company has its own beginnings, but before that, TreeHouse as a word is kind of an important thing in my family. When I was 10 and she was 9, I met this girl across the street. And one thing led to another. We've been married 22, 23 years now. And when she was a kid, and when we were kids together, I saw her dragging these boards across the backyard up to this tree. And I had no idea how tools worked or what was going on. But I said, I can do that, whatever. And so I got my sharpened thumb and went and hammered it into a tree with a nail and made her a tree house. And we sat there and stared at each other longingly for years, not knowing why we were staring at each other. And that's just one of the things in our background that our family's always loved, climbing trees. Our daughters, we have 3 kids now, they're just little monkeys. It's great. And so years ago, a fellow that helped me when I first began making drums had an idea that every time we make a TreeHouse drum set, we should plant a tree. And I thought that was a kind of neat idea. So there's another kind of tie-in to the idea of tree. And I saw how much it costs to buy and plant trees, and I said I'd just rather keep the price down, let people do that on their own, so it's not something that we do. But the other thing about TreeHouse is I really like the natural, the organic, the oil and wax finishes on the drums. I'll put the plastic wraps, the coverings, as the customers want it, and just for kind of a vintage vibe sometimes. But I personally prefer a natural maple shell or dyed blue or something like that with oil and wax.
Where you can still see the grain.
Yeah, just really natural. And then I'll burn the TreeHouse logo right into the drum and not have any chemicals in that process that are going to get into the environment. That's kind of an important thing to me. Again, kind of a tie-in to the TreeHouse. But more to where the drum company started, I owned a music store that I bought in '98. I still own it, Supersonic Music. And one of my customers had someone else make him a custom drum set. He wanted to add a drum, and it was taking a long time. And the runaround, and he was kind of getting conflicting stories about his project, and he was kind of frustrated and said, Derek, if we could combine your service with this other place's drum making, that'd be great. I said, I can't take out some loan. I hadn't ever made drums before. I'd taken them apart and fixed them, but never made them. He came in a couple weeks later, put money on the table, and said, I get the first kit. So we said, okay, we're going to make us some drums. That was 14 years ago. It took 9 months to get him the first kit. Actually, he got the second kit. I liked it better. I made 2 kits at the same time to just experiment with some processes. This was before there were forums, before there were books written about this. There were custom drum builders out there, not nearly as many semi-pro and pro guys as there are today, and hobbyists as there are today. But a lot of what I did was just trial and error.
So you never actually studied with anybody to learn how to make drums? You just sort of figured it out on your own?
Yeah, it's one of those things. If I'd have known then what I know now, carved 5 years out of the learning curve. But that's how I figured it out, is trial and error.
Do you have any guesstimate how many drum sets you've actually built over you said 15 years that you've been open?
I haven't added it up, but right now, at peak capacity, and you got to understand that this isn't just a drum company that I do. I have a music store, and I teach lessons, and there are family things that happen in my schedule. So drum building isn't my 100% full-time. But at full capacity with my assistant, a fellow that works with me to make drums, looking at 5-6 drum sets a month is max output if we're just hitting it hard.
One question I've got, because, you keep hearing, the new buzz for drum sets is custom. So what, I guess, makes TreeHouse Drums stand out compared to some of these other custom companies? Or what would you say, and on that same note, what exactly does custom mean for somebody that might not quite understand how, how much say they can actually have? I will say before I do this, when I first emailed him to build me a drum set, he started emailing me questions that I had to Google. Like, I'm a drummer. I've played tons of drum sets, but I literally had to go online and say, what the heck is this? Oh, that's what that is. I would like this. I mean, there were things that I just never thought about. So if you could just touch on custom drum sets for a second.
Okay, well, I do own a music store, and I've sold drums for 15 years, major name brand drums. A customer came to me and ordered a drum set that was made in Japan. It took 9 months by a major manufacturer. They offer in their catalog a 7-inch tom, 7 by 10 diameter, and an 8-inch tom, an 8-inch depth, 10-inch diameter tom. He wants 7.5 by 10. They came back after 3 months of having the order and said, nope, we won't make that. They didn't say they can't make that, because if my customer was a famous drummer, they would have customer built it, but they wouldn't make it. And that stuck in my craw that, dude, you could have moved your saw over. I know it's going to slow down your production line, but that's just such a big machine going so steady down its manufacturing path that it just doesn't have the capacity to turn. I heard an analogy. I don't know if the numbers are accurate, but the idea is here that the Queen Mary takes 2 miles to turn around in the ocean when it's going full speed. I feel that TreeHouse is riding a sea-doo. I can turn around about 10 feet. I can make decisions and change things more quickly because I don't have a huge industrial machine that's in here dictating that we have to do this process instead of that. I can edit things. So what that means for my customers is they get to pick the shell thickness, the depth of the drum, hardware placement. Whoever asked you when you wanted to order a snare drum, where do you want your strainer? Right? Because it could be by your left knee at like 8:30, or it could be 6 o'clock right in the middle of your legs, or maybe you want that strainer to hit your right knee at 3 o'clock. I'll put the logo on the strainer oriented the way you want it, and none of that costs any extra. I don't charge for that. Those are things that, as a drummer, I would appreciate to have tweaked to the way I want them, so I offer that to my customers. Another thing about custom is the cosmetic. I don't have the ability to do everything under the sun. And there are other drum companies that have a greater depth in their catalog of the cosmetic appearances that they can make available for their customers. Go to my Flickr page and see where we are hosting our pictures and just run through a decade plus. That's what TreeHouse Drums look like. Give me an idea, see if I can come up with it. If it's something I haven't done before, I'm happy to try.
But that being said, I mean, I own your drums, and they look incredible, but I can honestly say that I have not heard a drum company that can compete or compare in sound.
Oh, thanks.
And that's something that, I mean, as a musician, I mean, let's all be honest, these are incredible looking. Nobody's going to doubt that. The second you play it, hands down, there's no question, especially in my mind. That also being said, I mean, I get the question a lot, if you're doing these big shows and these big tours, and I mean, people are like, well, why aren't you going with these bigger companies? For this reason, I would never be able to sit down, have a conversation, call you on the phone, send you a text, joke around with you if you necessarily work for a big company that's dealing with thousands of other people. It's the personal touch. It's if anything happens at any second, I can call you and get it done. It's literally that. It's a family, I guess, to me. It's become a family, it's become a friendship, and that's the most important thing to me, especially in my music, because that's what music is about.
One of the weirdest things happened about 8 years into TreeHouse building. One of my kits was on the floor at my store for sale, and someone came in and bought it. Okay, the weird thing isn't that a guy bought the set, but that 8th year of making drums was the first time somebody ever bought a set that I made that I didn't know. I wasn't there that day. They came in, found it on the floor, and bought it and took it away. I never met them. I didn't get a picture. I got a name on a receipt. that was a pretty meaningful day to me. Everybody to that point, and most everybody since then, it's a conversation. Either they buy something that was on the floor because they liked it, or we had a conversation about how they want me to make it for them the way they want it. And that's part of what's fun about this. Man, I'd rather be doing this than flipping burgers, I tell you. This is so much fun to be in my basement making drums. I can turn the music up when everybody's gone, and I'm not blasting out the neighbors. I have a lot of fun doing what I do, and I love it. It's sincere. It's real.
I think one of the cool things for me, too, is not only do I get to partake in this family, but I'm also starting to bring my drum family into this world as well. I mean, people see my kit, they hear my kit, they start asking me questions. I mean, I've had at least, three friends come and start getting custom drums. I actually found out about TreeHouse from Taurus Lovely, who's another endorser of TreeHouse drums. I sat with him when he was doing Legally Blonde, and I said, holy cow, what is this drum set? Didn't put the connection together when I met you guys at Young Frankenstein until about a week later, and I went, oh, that's who this is. And instantly I knew that, that was it for me.
It's exciting when folks do it at a distance. Still, when I can have that conversation to create the drum the way that they want it, but I'm always a little bit nervous. What if they get it and it just wasn't the way that they imagined? My policy is send it back after I make it again the way you wanted it, and make sure you get it right. Make sure you get it satisfied, that you get this drum the way you want it, and it sounds the way you want it too.
So on my current tour, I am using another custom TreeHouse kit. So this is the Queen's We Will Rock You tour. So when I called Derek up, I essentially said, hey, I got this tour. It's being put together by Brian May, the guitarist, and Roger Taylor, the drummer from Queen. I want to do justice to these albums and their music. Can we do some research about putting together a drum set that's mimicking his sets from the 70s and early 80s? So, these drums are massive. They're almost as deep as they actually are wide. It's a huge drum set. But then, I think one of my favorite things is, since we're on stage, I'm playing this in front of a couple thousand people every night, and then I go out to the merchandise booth and I'll sign autographs. And I can honestly tell you that I will get at least a handful of drummers coming up to me asking me what these drums are. They just sound massive, and they're so huge, and no one knows the logo well enough to quite know about it, so it's this sort of hidden secret. Now, obviously I want other people to know about it, but, it's just such a treasure to have drums that sound like these and that people can sort of experience on a daily basis while I'm out on the road.
That's awesome. It's an example of just the natural growth. TreeHouse has been around about 15 years, but I'm not crazy, hungry, desperate to go turn a buck and have to sell them, and it's a passion. I'm going to do it well, and it's been growing by some drum companies' standards too slowly. By my standard, just right, because I can keep up. I really appreciate you having that enthusiasm, because if the world doesn't know about endorsements, let me tell you about that a second. This is not a free lunch. I cannot afford to fly you to Germany to come to my factory. I can't afford to pay you a salary to stand in the poster and show off TreeHouse. I am blessed that you are doing this of your own accord, that you're passionate about this is just a gift to me, and I thank you for that.
Well, I think it goes hand in hand. Your love for building drums shows in how the drums sound and look. My love for playing these drums goes in my want for everybody to also own a TreeHouse drum set. You just got a new website, I believe, done out there, if you want to give that information.
Yeah, Jason and I, the fellow that helps me make these drums, are not webmasters, but we did spend 27 months rebuilding our website from scratch that went live a few months ago, www.treehousedrums.com. Go there, there's hours of information, reading, videos, profiles.
I'm even on there.
Yeah, profiles of our players. You can keep track of Danny and the other guys that are playing with us. Endorsed players, schools, students that bought drums. That invitation is open to everybody to participate on our website of their TreeHouse experiences. And we wanted to thank you, Danny, for taking the time out of your busy schedule. It's quite phenomenal how many shows and how rigorous your calendar is, but yet you took some time out to come to speak and hang with us. and your support of TreeHouse is very well appreciated. It's very genuine, I can tell, and I thank you for that.
So make sure you guys get out there, www.treehousedrums.com. Check it out. I promise you, you will not be disappointed, and get that friendship started.